Gambling is quickly becoming one of the largest sources of global entertainment, rapidly taking over all forms of media. Not only now can you play a game of blackjack, you can also bet on who will win the blackjack championship. You can bet on sports, politics, and news. The gambling industry is slowly leaching into podcasts, short-form content,
Babble Fantasy,
and even journalism. This industry generates $650 billion per year, making it larger than the film, music, and gaming industry combined. But how is that possible that hundreds of millions of people are spending thousands of dollars with the knowledge that they are statistically guaranteed to lose? Turns out, the answer is as old as time. To solve this case, we will treat it as a murder. The question now becomes, why would the victim willingly use the knife on themselves? Our case starts where all great cases start, with the victim. He's 40, average looking, nothing about him stands out in a crowd, which is kind of the point. He's one of 1.5 billion people who reportedly gambled last year, one of 10 million addicts in the United States alone. Now here's the first thing that should bother you about this case. Nobody forced him. No one held a gun to his head or dragged him through the door. He chose this to some extent. Remember that phrase, to some extent. It will be useful later. He was handed a knife, and something in him, something he couldn't quite name or explain, compelled him to use it against himself, over and over again. What was that something? Here's what I can tell you. He's not stupid. He's not weak. He understood that statistically the house always wins. He knew the odds were against him every single time he sat down. And he sat down anyway. There's something I haven't told you about him yet. Something that reframes everything. 96% of gambling addicts share a specific psychological disorder. We'll get to it, but why is gambling suddenly taking off? The first reason is the simple one, the internet. Up until the mid-90s, gambling was strictly done in casinos or through purchasing lottery tickets. The industry was big, but nowhere near what it is today. But with the boom of the internet and a computer in every household, online gambling started receiving a massive lobbying push, finally winning and becoming legal. This sudden new way to access gambling opened the markets to hundreds of millions of new users. But the internet alone doesn't explain what happened next. Because gambling didn't just grow, it exploded. And to understand why, we need to understand the world it grew up in. The second reason is abundance. You're the first generation in human history to have too much. Not just money, though more people have more money than ever. Too much food, too much entertainment, too much time, too many choices, too much access. The average person in a developed country has more access to more pleasure and more stimulation than any king or queen has ever had in history. And that sounds like a good thing, it mostly is of course, but there's a psychological cost that no one warned us about. When survival required all your attention, when finding food, staying warm, and avoiding danger consumed your waking hours, the question of what to do with yourself never came up. Boredom wasn't an option, emptiness wasn't something you had the time to even feel. Now you do, when it turns out the human mind, left with too much time and too little friction, goes looking for stimulation. It's in our DNA. We will find something to fill the gap, whether it's food, social media, porn, gambling. These industries didn't create the hunger. They just showed up in the most convenient time for it. And in this case, convenience is the whole game. Think about what fast food actually sells. It's not nutrition, everybody knows that. It sells the immediate resolution of hunger with zero effort. Social media doesn't sell connection. It sells the feeling of connection, being on demand always without actually the worry of feeling vulnerable. Porn doesn't sell intimacy, it sells a simulation of it. Gambling sells the same thing, not wealth, but the feeling of possibility. The sensation that right now, in this moment, everything can change. That feeling costs nothing to produce and can be delivered in seconds. And in a world where people are overfed, overstimulated, but still hungry, still starving for something that actually means something, that becomes an extraordinarily powerful sell. There's a word for why these industries are exploding. Psychologists call it psychological substitution. When a genuine human need for excitement, for meaning, for connection, for hope, goes unmet, the mind will just accept a simulation of it. Not because it can't tell the difference, but because the simulation of it is just easier to receive. Gambling is a simulation of, oh wait, we have a new lead. I guess we'll continue this in a bit. The case continues. We need to examine the weapon that was used. Is there anything about the knife that would have made the victim want to use it upon himself? Well, let's have a look. The knife here is obviously a metaphor for casinos. Casino has no clocks, no windows, no natural light. The moment you walk in, you're meant to feel like time stops existing. You're in between. There should never be a feeling of, is it morning, is it night, should I leave, should I go to sleep? The only thought should be what's directly in front of you. The layout is deliberately of a maze. Anyway, I think I was talking about how the layout of the casino is a maze. It's deliberately built to be a maze. The exits are hard to find, but the ATMs are quite easy. The path from the door to the slot machine is meant to be as short of a distance as possible. And the path back out is engineered to be a whole journey. Every square foot of the casino has been obsessed over by behavioral architects, whose whole job is to keep you in the building for longer. The constant sound of overlapping winds, coins that aren't really coins, and lights that flash even when you lose. You can lose on a slot machine and feel, just for a second, that maybe it's possible. Maybe something almost happened. That feeling has a name. It's called a near miss, and it was put in there on purpose. Now take all of that, the timelessness, the maze, the engineered winds, and put that in your pocket, on your phone, because that's what happened. The casino required you to fly out, to book a hotel room, to do a whole vacation, to keep making choices. Do I want to go? Do I not want to go? The only decision to open the app on your phone is just to take the phone out of your pocket and open it. You know the feeling when you open your phone to look at your messages, but you somehow, some way opened Instagram on accident? Yeah, there is no choice that needs to be made. It's automatic. And that's how it's supposed to be. It's built exactly like that. Gambling is now available every hour of the day. It's optimized by the same engineers who have perfected social media apps. They're all running the same logic. They are all running the same logic. Keep the user engaged for as long as possible. Keep them on the app just a little longer. And then there's the advertising. Between 2018 and 2023, sports betting became legal in over 30 states. What followed was one of the biggest advertising rushes in American history. DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, they didn't just buy ad slots. Their whole point was to ingrain themselves in the culture. They embedded themselves into broadcasts and podcasts, into the language of sports itself. Odds now are just part of the conversation. Betting became part of watching. They didn't advertise gambling, they advertised having a stake in the game. Because you have money at stake, you become more invested. You care more. Even if everything goes wrong, there's still the next one. The lobbying machine that made this all legal is its own story. Hundreds of millions of dollars spent across 2 decades. State by state, chipping at legislation. The argument was always the same. It's already happening anyway, so might as well tax it and benefit from it. And the states agreed because they needed more money. Now, let's not even start talking about call sheet and polymarket, because those don't even count as sports betting. They count as trading, like stocks. That's why they're legal in the entire United States. It's all legal and technical loopholes, and the story of the game. The weapon was sharpened, legally, technically, and culturally. And then it was handed to our victim, who, remember, was already walking on his own to the door. Now it's starting to make sense that 96% of gambling addicts have a psychological disorder. Most commonly, depression, or a form of PTSD. Think about what that means for a moment. We're not talking about people that got greedy. We're talking about people who were already in pain. People who woke up every morning carrying a burden. Something invisible, something the people around them often couldn't even see. And gambling offered them something nothing else quite could. It wasn't money, it wasn't excitement, but it was relief. It's like for a few hours, you get in the building, you open the app, and that's all that matters. Problems go away. There's only the next bet, the next hand, the next spin. This isn't weakness. This is a person finding the only exit door that felt available to them. And the industry knew. They didn't just suspect it, they knew. The data has existed for decades. Marketing agencies that work with gambling companies have access to these profiles. They are detailed profiles of who are walking through the casino doors, who are opening the apps, who are betting the most money. They know what they're feeling and what they are trying to run away from. And what these profiles constantly showed were that the most profitable customer weren't the wealthy individuals seeking a quick hit. They were people in financial stress, people with histories of trauma, people that felt underneath everything that they didn't have much more to lose. So the advertising went and found them. Targeted ads that appear after depressive episodes. Promotions that spike around periods of economic anxiety. Free bets offered to people who've just lost everything, because the data shows that's when they are most likely to come back. Sponsorships embedded in sports. The podcasts, the communities that struggling men typically turn to when they're not doing well. This wasn't an accident, it was a business strategy. They built a trap and studied exactly who was most likely to fall into it. They did it legally too, with lobbyists defending their right to do so, with regulators who were outspent and outmaneuvered. Our victim, the 40-year-old lower middle class man, who nobody forced through the door, was not a random casualty. He was a calculated target. But while that's intriguing, it still doesn't really explain why gambling is an activity that billions of people participate in. There are hundreds of millions of people who gamble thousands to tens of thousands of dollars per year who don't struggle with any inherent mental illness. This brings us to the heart of the case. There are hundreds of millions of victims. Most of them had no reason to pick up the knife. So why did they? You've looked at the building, the app, the advertising, the lobbying, targeting of people already in pain. And all of it is real and all of it is damning. But here's what I haven't told you yet. The killer didn't sell gambling. He didn't sell money or wealth or even an escape from life. He sold something far older and far more dangerous than that. He sold happiness. Just play and you feel it. Finally, completely. This time for real. This time truly happy. And here's the uncomfortable truth about that promise. The killer didn't invent it. He just borrowed it. Because that promise, that happiness can be earned, consumed, that if the circumstances are just right, it can last forever. That idea has been with us since the very beginning. It's the promise behind every purchase, every relationship, every achievement we have ever chased. The promotion will do it. The house will do it. The number in the bank account will do it. The body in the mirror, the person across the table. This will finally be the thing that makes it permanent. It never is. Not because we're doing it wrong, but because of the way happiness actually works. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. And once you see it, you can't really unsee it. Here's the simplest version. Think of the last thing you wanted badly, really badly. Maybe you got it, and for a long moment, it really felt extraordinary. And then slowly, without you deciding to, it just became normal. The new phone became just a phone. The new apartment is just home. The brain adapted. It always does. Always returning to a baseline, regardless of what you add to your life. And it does this on its own. It does it the other way too. Grief that once felt unbearable softens. Loss that redefined everything slowly becomes something you carry rather than something that carried you. This is not a flaw. It's a feature that kept our ancestors alive. Always hungry, always moving, never satisfied enough to stop. Evolution didn't need us content. It needed us always reaching. But here's what that means for gambling. The casino didn't just exploit your desire for money, it exploited the entire treadmill itself. The first one is electric, but then your brain adapts. The same bet produces less, so you bet more. You raise the stakes, but it adapts again. And you raise again and again, not because you're stupid or broken, but because you're working exactly as you were designed to. Chasing a feeling that by its very nature cannot be chased, cannot be caught, can't be held. The killer understood this, maybe not in those exact words, but in the data, in the return rates, in the way people come back even when they're not winning, but when they're chasing the memory of what winning once felt like. He didn't build the trap for the greedy, he built the trap for the human. And so the verdict: did our victim willingly pick up the knife? Yes and no. He picked it up because something in him, something genuinely believed, desperately believed, that the feeling will stay. That this time the treadmill will stop. You will remain on a high. He wasn't being irrational, he was being human in its most unavoidable sense. The killer knew the treadmill never stops. When he set up shop right beside it, he capitalized on it. The pursuit of happiness isn't impossible because we're weak. It's impossible because we were never built to catch it. Only keep running. And some people, when they actually figure that out, they find something steadier than happiness. Not the high, not the chase, but just accept it as a life that's theirs.